Yep.
Good afternoon. This is Cooking with Carol Dianne. Today, I'm going to make buttermilk biscuits. This takes a while to learn. I have my ingredients here. You will need all-purpose flour. Why? Self-rising all-purpose flour, by the way. Self-rising. You will need this, very important, especially if you're high altitude like what I am. I live in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado and elevation almost 5,000 feet. So self-rising is a must for me to cook anything. You're gonna need some whole buttermilk, Crisco oil. I've only used Crisco, oh my gosh, ever since I learned how to cook. It's all I use. It's the best. I have a biscuit cutter. You can use most anything. You can have a glass, a biscuit cutter, a small can that you've opened both ends. Anything you want to do to roll out and cut the biscuit. And of course, the old standby of a cast iron skillet. Now I've used cast iron for many things. Pineapple upside down cakes to, cooking out on the campfire, it's a must. They make them a lot better than what they used to. Lodge puts out a good one. This particular one that I got, and yes, I'll recommend it to you, is called Camp Chef. And you find them at Murdoch's. And why I recommend it is very little seasoning to this cast iron skillet. I have Dutch ovens, I have all kinds of cast iron ware, and I just thoroughly recommend using it. So today we're gonna put the biscuits in this. So we have our bowl and we have the self-rising flour. We have come along and I have put the flour in the bowl so that it looks, yes, like a bird's nest. We've packed it down so that it's good and solid. Now I'm going to take a little handful, a little bit more than that, where I'm going to have a good, about two, they're going to look like little eggs. About the size of an egg of your Crisco oil. And put that in there. Hang on one second while I get a wrap. Detail to wipe the hands off on. Then you're going to put, and you don't have to measure. If you're like me and you like to eyeball it, you can. But you're going to use a good 2 cups of buttermilk. You're going to put this into the bowl, pour it right on in. So again, you've got your self-rising flour that you've put in a bowl because you can use this over and over again. It's so cool. You've got your 2 cups of the buttermilk, and you've got, it's about 1/4 cup if you were to measure it, but again, I have used 2 egg size chunks of the Crisco oil. Okay, now here comes the fun part. So you're going to take your fingers, your hand, and you're just going to squish the Crisco. Just get it all squishy in your hands into the buttermilk. You're not really incorporating any of the flour yet. You don't need to until you get all that nice little Crisco into the buttermilk. When you feel like the chunks are gone, then you can start taking your hands and adding just a little bit of the flour, getting it all into the buttermilk. And again, this takes a while to learn if your mother or grandmother did not teach you, and mine did not. This takes a little practice to do to get it the right consistency of what you want your biscuit dough to look like. So I'm still just kind of mushing it all up. Kind of like when you make a homemade meatloaf, you get your hands in there and just mix it all up. And that's what we're doing today. And I just kind of run my finger around the side to incorporate that flour. You need the flour in there. There's several different ways to make biscuits. This is just one of them. My father's aunt, called her Aunt Aura, she made homemade rolls. Best things you've ever had in your life. They would just melt in your mouth. But of course she used yeast, and this is a simple little biscuit. Not how the pioneers made out on the wagon trail by any means. It's still going to come out and it's still going to taste good. Okay, so we're just going to kind of keep mixing, because I don't feel any more large chunks of the Crisco in there. So I'm just going to keep adding my flour around and around. And we get it kind of mixed in there where I like it. Where it's forming more of a dough look now. Don't know if you can see that up to the camera, but it is starting to form more like pancake mix. When you're cooking pancake mix, it's starting to form like that, which that's what you want. And you just kind of keep going at it. Not in any hurry to make breakfast. Or as this, the time of the day that I'm making this with dinner tonight, I am going to have like a chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes, gravy, probably some beans, and my biscuits. And again, it's still forming. It's looking more like a dough now, which is good. Getting all that loose flour in there. All the loose flour in there. And the reason why you go slow at this is you don't want to just take a big chunk and start in with your flour, because then you'd have lumps, and you don't want that. You just want to slowly get it going. Which it's doing pretty good. If you have a bigger bowl, that's great. And I wish I did. I'm going to start looking for one, because a bigger bowl would keep all of the flour on the side a lot better. It's going to get sticky in your hands. And that's okay too. It's looking real good. Let's kind of get that flour going. It's just barely picking it up on the sides. It really is. Just kind of barely picking it up on the sides. Okay. Now, when you have it where you can really kind of feel it with your hands like this, it's looking pretty good right about now. Now you want to take some of this off, so you're just going to kind of peel it off with 2 fingers. Like so. It goes back in the bowl. And if you'll hang on just for a minute, you always have to wash your hands and get all this off. And I'll show you why in here in just a second. Okay, make sure your hands are nice and dry. And then if you have a nice surface that you want to work on, that's fine. I prefer to work with my pastry cloth here and my rolling pin. You don't have to. You can put it out on whatever surface that you have of your counter and add a little flour. I'm going to take just a little bit here and put on my flour board here, and a little bit on my hands, because that's very important. Now I'm going to take the dough. out of the pan. And you got to kind of work with it. And this is quite a bit that I've made. A little bit more on your hands. Now, you want to kind of toss it, get it going. This also takes out any more of the moisture from the buttermilk that you've put in. Just kind of turning it and tossing it. And rule of thumb is the less you handle it, the better. Now, years ago, I found this nice little cloth that goes on top of my rolling pin, which I really like because very few things stick to it. When I get done with my cloth, my pastry cloth and the rolling pin, I do like to shake off what's left over and get rid of it. And then I will take my rolling pin and I will roll like this with my cloth, and then I always stick this in the refrigerator. Now you say, now why is she doing that? Well, because if you ever get what's called little weevil bugs in your pantry or any kind of food cupboard with dry ingredients such as flour, you won't ever want them again because they're hard to get rid of. And keeping this in the refrigerator, you won't have that problem. Okay, so I dip mine a couple of times in the flour just to get it on here. Now, these are gonna be big, they're gonna be puffy. You're gonna put them in your skillet, which I have already taken care of with the Crisco oil. I have lightly greased my pan. Just kind of stick them in there. Give them a good twirl. Whatever's left over on your counter or your pastry cloth, just pick it up. You're gonna put these all together. They have to touch because they like each other. So they have to touch. And by the way, I have preheated my oven to 450. Every oven where you are is a little different. If you feel that 450 is not quite the heat that you want for your biscuits and you want to turn it up to 500, go for it. Mine's going to be at 450 today. And they should cook about 15 minutes, give or take. You'll just have to kind of keep an eye on them when they start turning golden brown. Again, they're all touching. Looking pretty good. Okay, they're all pretty much in there now. This dough that you have left over, again, all you have to do is roll it a couple of times, pat it down. You can either go like this if you want to, instead of using a rolling pin, however you want to do it. It's your kitchen. Cook the way you want to cook. Okay, so now I have this finished, as far as I'm going to go on that. Now I'm going to take my pan and pop it in the oven. Again, 450, about 15 minutes. And we're going to stop the video, and when I come back, I will show you what they look like, what they taste like too. Thanks for watching.